The Confederacy of Independent Systems mobilized the largest droid army in galactic history for the Clone Wars. The army was primarily composed of droids from just a few models, but more specialized units did exist. Some of these were just variants of the stock models, while others were elite units that became infamous in their own right. But the droid army had more than its fair share of obscure droids too. Some simply had hyper-specialized roles that weren't needed often, while others were a pain to deploy or to produce. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a few of these obscure Separatist droids. First off, a quick disclaimer. This is not an exhaustive list. We're only going to be looking at a handful of droids today, so we have time to do each of them justice. Additionally, we'll only be focusing on unique droid models, not variants. We've already released a video on the many variants of the B1 battle droid, and perhaps we'll make another one on the variants of the B2 super battle droid in the near future. For today, however, variants of either line are right out, as are variants of the Droids or the other well-known Separatist units. With that said, let's get right into things.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
First, let's take a quick look at a unit you might remember from Star Wars The Clone Wars, the Infiltrator / Demolition Droid, or I/D droid. IDs were unique droids capable of transforming into 3 different forms: an infiltration mode, a combat mode, and a bomb mode. In infiltration mode, they would disguise themselves as sweeper droids to get into target locations. After infiltrating a target, they would shift into combat mode, opening up on anyone that got in their way with a pair of laser cannons. Once their target location was clear, 2 droids would combine to form makeshift bombs, following which the droids would detonate, wreaking havoc. These were famously used in a suicide attack on Coruscant's power generators that one time, and the reason they're on this list is because, to our knowledge, they were never used again. Nor, really, could they have been used again. The Republic knew what the infiltrator droids looked like in their infiltration mode after the attack on Coruscant, after all. The same trick would never work again, and this would have rendered those brand new droids totally useless. What a waste. A similar but not quite so wasteful unit was the Commerce Guild Chameleon droid. Based on Arakid Industries' Spelunker probe droid, a mining droid the Commerce Guild bought in bulk, the Chameleon droid was a simple but deadly retrofit. The droids had been designed to scale cliff faces and plant blasting charges, but with the addition of some blasters and a prototype personal stealth field generator, the droids became something far deadlier. These lethal saboteurs could place charges all over crucial choke points or enemy fortifications while invisible, and then detonate them remotely before the enemy knew something was up. Chameleon droids weren't equipped with true stealth field generators, but rather an array of holographic projectors that pretty much did the trick. These stealth generators rendered them invisible both to scanners and the naked eye, allowing the droids to lay their mines in secret. In combat, they tended to create minefields and then drop out of stealth mode to herd their enemies into the mines, allowing them to clear out large groups of infantry. From this description, you'd think the droids would be invaluable to the CIS, but in reality, they were rarely deployed. The most notable deployment of the droids was in a skirmish on Ilum earlier in the war, following which the droids became rare, seen only on Commerce Guild stronghold worlds. Their rarity was likely due to how expensive their stealth generators would have been. Next up, we have the BL series Battle Legionnaire, otherwise known as evil C-3POs. These droids were produced in a limited run for the Mandalorian Protectors, a Mandalorian separatist faction led by the rogue ARC Trooper Spar. Only 1,000 of them were ever produced, but what these droids lacked in quantity, they made up for in quality. Despite looking like reskinned protocol droids, BLs featured military-grade internal systems, which allowed them to lift thousands of kilograms over their heads and run at 30 kilometers per hour for a full day without recharge. These droids may have looked dorky, but they were absolute units under their plating. Typically, BLs employed chest-mounted blaster boxes or Mandalorian battle harnesses, though some used handheld blaster weapons as well. They were a good match for the Mandalorian Protectors on the battlefield. While Spar and his men preferred lightning tactics, the BLs were heavy hitters, and they complemented each other well. They were very effective, but due to their limited run, they were also exceedingly rare. After the Battle of Norval II, in which Darth Sidious lured the Protectors into a trap in the hopes of wiping them out, virtually all of the BLs were destroyed. Those that were left returned to Mandalore and set out the rest of the war. Next, we have the A-Series Assassin Droid. These highly advanced units were exceedingly mobile and often heavily armed, and they were only ever deployed against the most high-value targets. Their weapons loadouts varied. Some only featured an array of blaster weapons, while others made use of flechette launchers, sonic detonators, flamethrowers, hard sound guns, vibroblades, and even tractor beam projectors. They preferred to work in large groups, employing their collective, overwhelming firepower as a very direct method of assassination. Their most well-known appearance was at the end of the Battle of Jabim, in which they were deployed against the last surviving members of the Padawan pack. They weren't seen much, however, as there were few of them, and they weren't produced by the Confederacy. These droids had a bit of an interesting history. They were created thousands of years before the Clone Wars by a scientist named Pollux Poi, who the Shell Hutts had contracted for the job. The Shell Hutts used the droids to attack Geetsly Kajadik, and the Geetsly responded by hiring elite Dashade Shadow Killers to take out Poi. Poi fled to Kashyyyk, where he spent the rest of his life hiding out in the jungle, guarded by his assassin droids. After he died, his droids set out on their own. On Kashyyyk, they happened on an ancient Rakatan machine, which they used to upgrade themselves. Following this, they left Kashyyyk and travelled to the Gree Enclave, where they hired themselves out to the highest bidder. They were still in the Gree Enclave when Count Dooku paid the Gree a visit shortly before the Clone Wars, and Dooku hired a lot of them to work for him permanently, knowing they would be useful in the war to come. Next up is the Ground Armored Tank. Yep, that's right, there's a tank on this list, specifically a droid tank. The GAT was produced by Bactoid Armor Workshop for the Intergalactic Banking Clan, which committed it to the CIS droid army for use as a fighter tank. Intended to counter the Republic TX-130 fighter tank, the GAT was markedly inferior to its Republic counterpart, primarily due to its drastically lower speed and lack of shields. The latter point was a particularly serious problem, as, like the TX-130, the GAT was too small to be heavily armored, and thus, it didn't take many hits to bring one down. Like the TX-130, the GAT was armed with a pair of medium laser cannons and 2 missile launchers, which could carry 24 missiles between them. Unlike the TX-130, however, the GAT was, in fact, a droid. Like the Hailfire droid or the OG-9 homing spider droid, these tanks had their own droid brains and no internal crew compartments. They were fairly effective as reconnaissance or light cavalry, and the Confederacy deployed them in significant numbers at the very start of the war. However, they proved unable to stand up to most Republic vehicles in one-on-one battles, and so they were quickly phased out in favor of the Crab droid and the Octuptara Tri-droid, both Techno-Union models. After the first 2 months of the war, they became a rare sight on the battlefield. Our last rare droid was the Proto-decker, another droid tank. The Proto-decker was a monstrous repulsor tank designed by the Colicoids, the same insectoid species responsible for the deadly Droidica. These tanks were incredibly well armored, and in true Colicoid fashion, they were armed to the teeth. Instead of the usual laser cannons that most tanks employed, Proto-deckers were equipped with full-on turbo lasers, as well as rapid-firing concussion missile launchers and a seismic wave emitter. They could obliterate virtually anything that stood in their path, including some of the Republic's most heavily armored vehicles. There was just one problem with the Proto-decker: they were insanely expensive. Only a handful were ever built, and the Confederacy wasn't eager to go around wasting them. Count Dooku ordered the deployment of a few during the Dark Reaper crisis. One was deployed on Raxus Prime, while 2 more were deployed on Thule. Aside from that, we know of no other instances of the Proto-deckers seeing use, though undoubtedly there were more than 3 and they were likely deployed at some point. So that's our look at a few obscure Separatist droid units. But what do you think? Would you like to see a second part of this video? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And guys, if you're itching for some more content, make sure you check out our new channel where we post very high quality videos. We take a look at some of the most badass people from all different eras of history. So if that sounds like it tickles your fancy, that's the first link in the description below. If you're more of a musical type bloke, we also have our Relax Jack music channel where we use a lot of the stuff posted there on the channel here. So if you like the background music we use, make sure you check out that channel. And if you want access to a behind the scenes Discord where you can chat to myself and the team who work with me, make sure you consider donating there. And if you just want access to the wider Geetsly's community, check us out at our main Geetsly's Discord and our Geetsly's gaming network. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next video.